Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage we talk about Jaguar XK8 XKR shut lines associated with the boot. Secrets of the XK8, episode number 34. Whoa! I've had a fair number of questions now about shut lines and how to improve them. Particularly on the boot lids, or trunk lids I should say for our American friends, on XK8s, XKRs. And I thought it was worth sharing a few little secrets of the XK8 because Jaguar has got quite a lot of finesse when it comes to shut lines. Now, I've worked in all sorts of car plants in all sorts of places, and I've got to say there is not a car plant in the world where most of the fit and finish and shut line adjustment done is not by a heavy chap leaning on a door, etc. It's just how it happens. There's a lot of flexing and manoeuvring of panels and tweaking and, bending of things like hinges. Very subtle stuff to get that last bit of finesse. However, Jaguar is a prestige product, and they've put more effort than the majority of manufacturers into getting those shut lines right. So if yours aren't right, then maybe you can adjust them out and make them correct without too much heaving and shoving on bits of sheet metal. So let's have a look at what you can do about your boot lid. Obviously this is a convertible, but the principles are very much the same on the coupe as well. I think the questions actually started on me because somebody saw a photograph of the back of my car which made it look like the shut lines on the boot were really bad. It was just the angle it was sat and the boot lid was popped. But what we're talking about is this gap here should be very, very consistent. And this is a really heavily compound line. And the styling of the car makes it hard to actually follow that gap width, but it is incredibly consistent. It's something that you should be very proud of if you own a Jaguar, should be your shut lines. And yet cars have had accidents, panels replaced, etc. won't be as good. But I follow this set of shut lines, and being a sad chap as I am, I know there is not a whole millimetre of variation, side to side, top to bottom, anywhere. Equally important is, if you look across the panel this way, the boot lid should smoothly flow into the wing panel, which again is a massive achievement. Because on the panels of our Jags, we have these beautiful compound curves. There is no flat edges, nothing to make it easy to register the panel gaps. Once you start looking at this sort of stuff, A, you become very sad and focused. B, you start to register the fact that on a lot of cars, they make it easy for themselves. When it comes to a panel gap, a boot lid or something, the line will be straight at least that way, if not that way as well. This is compound in every regard. It's closer here, but you've got a black strip, so actually you follow this line. It's very consistent again. And likewise, the gap at the bottom should be even all the way across and match the panel gaps at the top. So my panel gaps, very good. How is that achieved and how would you adjust it? There are two devices for the vertical adjustment of your panels on your Jag, and this one looks really innocuous. It's a little screw here at the hinge, and to all the world it looks like it does absolutely nothing. Same on the other side. There he is, little bracket off of the hinge, and it's not connected to anything. But what this does is this makes contact with this. Now it's not possible to show this because it's in this well, there's no way I can photograph it, but behind this panel here you've got the same piece of hinge, behind that panel there same piece of hinge. So I'm going to use this one as our example to give you the impression, at least. You can see the screw. Check this piece of the hinge. I can only go so far before I'm locked myself in the boot. As the boot lid comes down, so that leans forward and eventually will sit touching that screw. That means if you lift this screw, undo anti-clockwise, the boot lid will sit higher at its hinge end, and you can adjust out the panel finish in this way. On an awful lot of cars, and I'm not talking cheap cars either, I won't name them, what would happen is they would put a block of wood here and basically close the boot lid and squeeze it to stretch the steel work and lift the boot lid. This has got an inbuilt adjuster. But what about the back? There is plainly nothing to adjust down here. Nothing at all. Go all the way around. Sorry about the sunlight, can't really complain about sun. And at the top on the actual boot lid, yeah, we've got some springy rubber bungs, but the only thing that looks remotely like it might have anything to do with anything is this. That has nothing to do with the panel gap. It also isn't, as everybody thinks, anything to do with the boot lights. This is not in any way connected, so I'm pressing that, and hear it, and it's your boot lights. The only purpose of that is when you open your boot, I'm just going to check I've got my keys in my pocket. I do. Very good news. So, when you press the trunk release button, the boot pops up. That is achieved by that springy thing. That is all it's there for, is it pushes the boot lid open. It is worth making sure that that is springy and moving, and if it isn't, replace it, because if it fails completely, and they do occasionally, spring goes, if it's rusty and it just shoots up, what happens is the boot releases, but sometimes because it's not pushed away, it relocks, and you get into an endless cycle of you can only just about get your boot lid open, getting your fingers underneath, rattling it, and you move the pawl over. The whole thing relies on a nice clean pull from that. It rests on this, which is just a panel riven up. You can see one here somebody's tried to incorrectly remove, because I can see the screwdriver mark there. This one is all peened over, and again worth replacing this now and again, because it'll get to the point where you can't get a screwdriver in there and twist it anti-clockwise to lift the rivet, and that's because that buffer hits that and pushes off on that, and this is only plastic. So that's what that is. The other thing, and I pointed at it, is this innocuous looking little rubber springy buffer. When I come around to the other side, I think the lighting might be better. Yeah. And what looks like basically a springy buffer is not a spring as much as it's a screw thread. So this is screwed using this is the thread, into the body panel. If I take my rubber buffer and turn it a complete turn clockwise, you'll see that it gets shorter by this width, which is about, let's have a look, I'm going to say 3 mil. So if I want my boot lid to be lower when it shuts at the back edge by 3 millimeters, then what I would do is this. Boot lid will now shut 3 millimeters lower because this has been screwed in to the bodywork. Count the coils with me. 1, 2, 3, 4 whole coils. I'm going to wind it back to where it was now. One, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole coils. And that is how you adjust the vertical movement on the back edge of your boot lid. In order to adjust your panel gap left-right position, you put a very thin piece of wood or plastic here so as not to scuff your paint. I would recommend, because I'm that way inclined, you wrap this in insulation tape and then you put a screwdriver in the panel gap and you gently push the panel away or towards you from the opposite side. The reality of the situation is, if you need to make an adjustment in that direction, it may well be down to a refitted boot lid, and I'd recommend in that case undoing the bolts which hold the boot lid on, undo as in slacken, and then manoeuvring the hinges on the boot lid to get a slightly better position. You do have some play beneath these nuts. The other alternative for massive adjustment is literally you push on this, which will flex both these arms, and move the thing over. So there we have it. All in all, there should not be any reason you can't achieve a perfect shut on the boot lid of your XK8, XKR Coupe or convertible, because they are high quality panels. Somebody went to a lot of trouble to get this massive compound curve. So this way, up towards us, meeting a wing that does this, with a boot that does this. This is brilliant work. Look across that corner. How on earth you design it to make it work that well? You can get it back to how it should be factory. You don't have to accept bad shut lines. And if you do have bad shut lines, it might be down to a bump. Maybe the boot lid's been damaged in some way. Maybe it's been refitted and it's not been fitted well. Go sort it out. While I've got you guys, I'd just like to say thank you for all the love we're getting for the Secrets of the XK8 series. Really appreciate it. I really enjoy doing them. And thanks for all the suggestions and snippets that are coming in. If you want to send a short video clip off your mobile phone of anything you think that's particularly quirky or interesting that you'd like to share with others, it doesn't matter if you think I might know it or everybody will know it, send it in anyway. And I'll put them into the video format of the channel and launch a few of those in one when I've got a little collection. So thanks for that. Another one is I've had a few requests from various people to do some translations of the stuff that's on a video. I'm no linguist, but I have translated a couple of the episodes into French. I don't have the time to do that. I did it because I was specifically asked. There is a feature that is on YouTube that is not perfect, but is pretty goddamn decent. So if you look at the bottom right hand corner of your viewing screen, then you can switch on subtitles. And that's usually the left hand icon of about 4 or 5 over on the right bottom corner. Switch on your subtitles. Next door to it is a little cog, which is the settings feature. If you click on that, and then I'm doing this from memory, but it's something like translation, options, and you've got the option then to choose your language, and it will change the language of the subtitle using an automated algorithm into Pidgin English, Pidgin French, Pidgin, insert your appropriate language in there. It's not perfect, but you know, I do this as a hobby. This is not something that is a profession. It's not something I have a lot of time for, and it's certainly not something that anybody is paying me for. Obviously I get a few pounds from YouTube for the advertisements now and again, which is really great, but you know, it wouldn't pay for 3 screwdrivers a month. I've used it on some videos that I've been watching, for even some Russian YouTube videos that I've really enjoyed, and been able to get subtitles that were more than good enough to understand what the presenter was trying to get across, and really enjoyed it. So use that feature. Top tip from me, something I learnt about whilst trying to do some really rough and ready translations into French. Right, see you very soon. Thanks.